Electric power is everywhere present in unlimited quantities. It can drive the world's machinery without the need of coal, oil, gas, or any other fuel. This new power for the driving of the world's machinery will be derived from the energy which operates the universe, the cosmic energy, the cosmic energy, the cosmic energy, the cosmic energy, the cosmic energy.
In today's video, I'm going to be looking at an alleged interview where Nikola Tesla stated that quote-unquote everything is a delight. This interview surfaced a few years ago with a mostly unknown origin, which claimed this was a quote-unquote hidden or banned interview of Nikola Tesla. Despite of this, many believe it is fake. In this video, I'm going to be looking at this interview, analyzing the core of the philosophy and the wisdom contained in it, along the data, dates, and facts related to Nikola Tesla, in order to debunk whether this interview is real or not, and just as importantly, what the theory discussed actually suggests. This is an in-depth look at the figure of Nikola Tesla. I will offer my final verdict at the end of the video, but one thing is certain: even if the interview is fake, it contains an in-depth understanding of Tesla's core philosophy, and the wisdom contained in it is thought-provoking and aligned with what the current research, ranging from quantum physics to altered states of consciousness, is suggesting. Before I move forward, I would like to remind you that if you want to join the growing discussion on consciousness and would like to be notified on the latest scientific discoveries and theories surrounding this topic and how they connect to ancient mythologies and philosophies, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, as I'll try to upload at least one video per week as I continue with the outline. Alright, so it goes on. Tesla says the knowledge of how the mental and vital energy transform into what we want and achieve control over all feelings. Hindus call it Kundalini Yoga. This knowledge can be learned for what they need many years or is acquired by birth. The most of them are acquired by birth. They are in the closest connection with a sexual energy that is after the most widespread in the universe. The woman is the biggest thief of that energy and thus the spiritual power. I always knew that, and I was alerted of myself. I created what I wanted, a thoughtful and spiritual machine. So again, the whole idea of the mental and vital energy transform into what we want. It's about manifestation and so on and so forth. As I said, this either Tesla was very advanced and he was a pioneer into New Age thinking, or this was written by someone who is very creative and has an idea of the universe of energy and some of these New Age ideas. Now, what I find interesting here is how they introduce here the whole idea of woman being the biggest thief of that energy, being that Tesla was always was unmarried, and he did he was very vocal about. Indeed, he was very vocal about his answer to the question why he never married. I found this in 1924. It's an interview he did in 1924. There's a few sites where you can find this. I'm gonna link one of these. I don't know which one right off. You can look for it. It was in the Galveston Daily News, where he talks about a woman. And what I find really interesting is that this relates to some of the current issues. Now, this might be a little bit off topic to the topics that I analyze in this channel, but not so much. When I start going into the pragmatic philosophy, and what I want to do with all that we're learning in this catalog of research, in this catalog of experiences, and what we're learning about who we are, what we are as human beings, at the end of the day, what I want to create is pragmatic philosophy, which is going to help us move forward with our lives and can be applied to our individual lives based on the research, based on these ideas, based on what seems to be true. Indeed, so Nikola Tesla was very vocal into the question on why he will never marry, and it's funny that they introduced this here. The woman is the biggest thief of that energy, talking about this energy transformation, this vital energy, this ether, this cosmic energy, as he says. And some of his ideas, what I find is that were quite revolutionary. This is a man who was in the 1800s, who died in 1940. He was and there is no question whether this is real or not. This is something that he believed. When we come to this interview, we're figuring out if it's real or not. When we come about some of his ideas, just briefly, just as a matter of perspective, what he thought is the acquisition of new fields of endeavor by women, their gradual usurpation of leadership will dull and finally dissipate feminine sensibilities, will choke the maternal instinct so that marriage and motherhood may become abhorrent and human civilization draw closer and closer to the perfect civilization of the bee. What does he mean with the perfect civilization of the bee? And now this is tying to some of the modern debates when it comes to feminism and to men, to the roles in society and so on and so forth. And at some point, if somebody's watching this video, they are thinking, what's going on? I say he because I think 90% of the viewers of my channel are men. According to the statistics, but in any case, they're thinking, what is the relationship between science and all of this with these issues? One of my purposes with this outline, as I said, is make this catalog of scientific research and the newer reports on the states of consciousness, along with philosophies ranging from ancient philosophies to current philosophies. And with all that information, at the end of the day, what I want to create and what is coming in the next few books that I have in mind, and the one that I'm writing right now, is I want to make this pragmatic philosophy. So we have all of this information, all these catalogs of information, whether scientific, whether anecdotal, whatever you may, and I want to make it useful so people can apply it in their life. Now, one of the issues that I see currently is, despite that we have enormous issues in the world, is this issue between the genders, and I find it interesting that Nikola Tesla approached it here. So while we're talking about Tesla, I'll go a little bit into it. So it says here in another side, a little bit further into his ideas, I had always thought of woman as possessing those delicate qualities of mind and soul that made her in her respects far superior to man. I had put her on a lofty pedestal, figuratively speaking, and ranked her in certain important attributes considerably higher than men. I worshipped at the feet of the creature I had raised to this height, and like every true worshipper, I felt myself unworthy of the object of my worship. So basically, he would put women on a pedestal. This in some of the circles of what is today called the manosphere and so on and so forth. This is some idea, but he says all of this was in the past. Now the soft-voiced gentlewoman of my reverent worship has all but vanished. In her place has come the woman who thinks that her chief success in life lies on making herself as much as possible like men in dress, voice, and actions, in sports and achievements of every kind. The world has experienced many tragedies, but to my mind the greatest tragedy of all is the present economic condition wherein women strive against men and in many cases actually succeed in usurping their places in the professions and in industry. This growing tendency of women to overshadow the masculine is a sign of a deteriorating civilization. That's Nikola Tesla in 1924. 100 years after this, what we're experiencing in the world right now, I mean, there's no doubt that Nikola Tesla was a visionary. He goes into why we're gonna be like a bee, like an insect sort of society. But he says here, the tendency of women to push aside man, supplanting the old spirit of cooperation with him in all the affairs of life, is very disappointing to me, and this is why he didn't marry. So we have, whether man or woman or whatever gender we may think, in our current society, this spirit of cooperation is being removed by false ideas of who we are and what we are as human beings. Part of this outline will be trying to remind people who we are, or get a closer idea to who we are and what we are as human beings based on scientific research, anecdotal evidence, ancient and current philosophies. And my hope with this work is to make a new philosophy, a pragmatic philosophy, which will bring back this spirit of cooperation, whether we're talking about genders, whether we're talking about relationships, whether we're talking about anything. If we remove this spirit of cooperation in our current society will go nowhere. now to the terms of, well, how does this connect to the original interview? As I said, he introduces here the moon is the biggest thief of that energy. This is the belief of Nikola Tesla, as we know. So this is, as we keep looking at this interview, it's only two options. Either there's the slight possibility that this is a real idea, which or this little line was very, very cleverly introduced by someone who knew Nikola Tesla, who understood who Nikola Tesla was and what his ideas were. So regardless the case, whoever wrote this knew what Nikola Tesla was on about. Alright, so I have a few post-editorial notes for this video. Number one is I want to remind anyone who's watching this video, this is a playlist with various ideas of which are included in this quote-unquote lost interview. One of the counter-arguments that I saw somewhere on social media from my previous videos was about someone asking for a TLDR, what this whole thing is about, and somebody replied, oh, he's just reviewing one paragraph of a fake interview, as they call it. I want to remind you that I'm splitting this interview because when I started looking at it, I thought it was fake, it was part of this play, but as I start seeing this narrative, I'm finding out that there's so much more to it. So no, I'm not reviewing one paragraph. What I'm doing, for example, in the previous video, is I'm correlating this one paragraph, yes, with the rest of the information that we have on the topic. So for example, he speaks about light particles and how they accompany you with everything you read, you learn, you hear throughout your life. This is exactly what the orchestrated objective reduction theory from Penrose and Hammer states. So I'm putting real research and comparing it to this interview. Does it make sense what the interview says? And not only that, I'm looking into this whole concept that Tesla, when he said everything is light, he was not just speaking, whoever wrote this interview, either whoever forged this interview or Tesla himself, he was not speaking about, oh, everything is light, everything is woo. He was talking about the ether, about this energy that pervades the universe most likely, and he did speak in actual interviews about this. So the whole interview has a narrative that I am analyzing and looking at and corroborating with other sources of information, very much like this video where he keeps talking about this energy, which quote-unquote women are the biggest thieves of, but everything, it has the same narrative, everything is in line with the whole idea. So what I'm looking at with these videos is, number one, to put all these little bits of information together, look at their narrative, look at everything, and corroborate it with real information from Tesla, with real interviews, with real ideas, real quotes from Tesla, to see whether there is a correlation. So no, I'm not looking at just one paragraph, I'm correlating everything as a whole. And when this playlist is complete, of course it's not going to be a paragraph. This is the fourth video on the playlist, and it's not one paragraph for sure. In some of the other videos I'm gonna go into more than one paragraph, but as I start looking into it, and as I started looking into it, I found little things and I started to do the research. As I mentioned, all of these clips I had already done the whole thing. These post-editorial notes I'm doing as I'm changing my mind about these whole interviews, because when I finished recording these my thoughts on these clips from the interview, I was very surprised, and I was doubting my initial idea that this interview is fake. So I started to make an argument on how and in which situation could this interview be real. Alright, so as I said, even if this interview turns out to be false, what I'm doing here is going into all of the ideas of Tesla, his actual ideas, and the interview is an amazing way of enhancing and honoring the ideas of Tesla because of this narrative that I mentioned. Now, I do want to say that I hope that the few women that do watch my channel and they might run into this video do not think that this is an attack against them or anything like that. We're looking into the ideas of Tesla, and indeed, in his words in the 1920s, in some of the interviews from the 1920s, he seems a little bit frustrated. He seems to speak with a little bit of I wouldn't say anger, but some of this frustration, how he used to put women on a pedestal and how they are turning into something that is could potentially not be beneficial for society at large. And he does talk about his disappointment that this quote-unquote spirit of cooperation is gone. And I've seen some actual philosophers, from modern age philosophers, talking about this spirit of cooperation being gone. So this is not an attack against women. We're looking into the ideas of Tesla and whether this corroboration or not. So he does talk about how this, in the actual paragraph, he talks about this knowledge and how this mental and vital energy transforms into what we want. So if you think about the narrative of the whole thing, you can he speaks about how this energy, you can learn this energy, or you are born with it. And he talks about how some people study for years and they call it kundalini yoga, most likely talking about the monks. So this seems a little bit a little bit Eastern European, but we do have, and I'm gonna go into it in the future, some of the ideas from Tesla regarding Eastern spirituality and Sanskrit attacks, and it all fits the narrative. And if we think about this interview, I caught some parts which talked about visualization and illness and his childhood. As I said, they are very specific things. It seems like a Tesla who is really open about his real thoughts. The reason why I caught those parts is because, as I said, I'm looking into what I can actually corroborate with real information, with other interviews that he gave. What we can gather from this paragraph, on the most insulting part, as I said, this is not against women. We're looking into the ideas of Tesla, how he says that women are the biggest thieves of this life force, of this energy. This is a very clever line in the interview. And if this is a false interview, whoever wrote this was very in line into the mind of Tesla, very into his ideas, because it is not only about this frustration. This line does not include only the frustration that he did depict in the narrative from the 1920s, in the interviews from the 1920s, but he's also going with the narrative of this spiritual energy, of this life force, of this what he called luminiferous ether. So we can see the correlations right here. I debated myself a lot on whether I was gonna upload this video or not, because I thought the topic was a little bit too sensitive, and also I thought it was a little bit off topic. But upon closer inspection, I was just amazed at how some of the things that Tesla said in the 1920s are current topics of discussion with this. What he predicted is something that is happening. And I'm not talking about actual feminism. I'm not talking about the actual idea of women being equal in all senses in the face of the law, in the face of structural society. I am talking about what he calls the dissipation of feminine sensibilities and the quote-unquote choking of the maternal instinct. And the most important thing that I think is very relevant to put forward, and this is going into, it also allows me to go into some of this pragmatic philosophy that I want to offer based on all the data, based on all the information that kind of help us be useful. This spirit of cooperation that he talks about, that is lost not only in the relationships between men and women, between genders, but in society at large, this spirit of cooperation that is gone. He mentions also something really interesting, and I guess as I start going into this, and the reason why I wanted to upload it as well was because I'm probably going to be uploading this on the 25th, on Christmas Day, so you can take this as some sort of a bonus video where I go a little bit further into this, because I think this is an important topic. So a really interesting thing that he mentions in this whole idea that this phenomenon might not be good for society at large is the economical situation. It is not only that women are being led or are being given the idea that they must compete against men culturally, but they are being forced into it. We are all being forced into a society, a highly materialist society, which strives for competition between men and women, between men and men, just pure competition in what people are calling this quote-unquote extreme capitalism, where the price of everything is rising, but wages are staying stagnant or being lower. So social classes are becoming lower. There's a whole economical situation dealing with this. It's not only a cultural situation. So as I said, I'm not going to go into detail for this, but now that we're going into, might as well mention it because this is something that is missed in the current conversation about this. But what I'm really interested about this whole thing between the genders, where it ties to a rational divine owl and it ties into the pragmatic philosophy that I will offer, is the idea of relationships. Why are relationships important? Why would the relationship between men and women be important at all in a metaphysical sense, on a spiritual sense, on a scientific sense into what we are and who we are as human beings? In the reports of false states of consciousness, whether it is we're talking about near-death experiences, psychedelics, so on and so forth, one of the main takeaways, one of the main ideas that people come back with is this intrinsic connection between everything in the universe, even the beings that inhabit such universe, and they come with the idea that all that matters at the end is quote-unquote love. So this is a huge puzzle to solve. Why love? Why does it matter? And it's not the love as mentioned, this idea of relationship love, or the idea of these basic concepts of love that we have. They talk about this love as the fundamental basis of the universe, as everything that is, and the core of why everything exists, and so on and so forth. So a lot of questions come from this. Why do we have this system where people look, just going with the idea of near-death experiences, why does the brain, if we say that the brain is the one causing everything, why is it looking at the experiences of relationships, of interactions between people, or the times that you heard? Why does the brain cares in this sort of life review or quote-unquote judgment? Why does it make you feel what you made others feel through your actions? We don't have an answer for this. This is a huge question, a huge puzzle. And as I said, this is no longer just philosophy. This is research, and this year we had a scientific consensus statement for the future research of near-death experiences, where all of these little aspects that keep repeating in the research stack and stack and stack. The same thing with psychedelics. They're telling people that this is a cosmic joke, that everything is an illusion, and we're here to experience, we're here to have fun. So what I see in our current society, just putting that on the side and putting a huge bracket on that and just leaving it for the future, which is what I'm gonna be going into this pragmatic philosophy. We think about our current society being highly individualistic, highly egotistical, and this hedonism that exists in what seems to be what Nietzsche called our current society is the bungled and the botch, just filled with nihilism, with an air of nihilism and just negativity. What I see is that perhaps what we are going through is that we look at our current society as something very unnatural to what we might be at the core. This energy that is all together, that is trying to experience things, that is trying to experience and you put into the whole thing. I know that I'm going a little bit all over the place here, but I'm just finishing this video. I just want to finish right now with this idea, is that besides all of this, we're looking at a possibility of a meaning behind such relationships. If we're living in a school, as people like to call it, or a prison, we have some lesson to learn. let's say it's just the brain who wants us to learn these lessons. The brain wants us to look at our lives and look at the relationship we have with each other, and look at the highlights of when we were quote unquote loving to others, or when we hurt others. This is what near-death experiences are telling us. So when we look at the current situation of our society, when we are pitted to compete against each other without this quote unquote spirit of cooperation, as highly individualistic beings who are just focused on material senses, and in the terms of gender relationships between men and women, we look at each other as things with sexual market values, and men look at women just for sex, and in contrast, women look at men just for resources or for ego validation. And there is this fight of egos in the current relationship between men and women. It's all about enhancing your own ego through the other instead of finding intrinsic value in the other person. And now, if it turns out that we are just emanations of a larger force, which might be the all, the be all, the one mind, the all, and we are in a sense what we would call parts of this larger intelligence, which many call God, missing our intrinsic value might be the thing that could have the current state of relationships in such a disaster as it is today. If you're on the path of finding the truth about reality and our purpose as humans on Earth, the information that I have to share concerns you. After a lifetime of research in philosophies ranging from Buddhism to the occult, I've encountered themes and patterns along some baffling information that is beginning to be seriously studied by science. A Rational Divine Outline, The Ghost of Jesus, is the first iteration of this project, where I analyze the message of Jesus without dogmatism, fanaticism, or religious bias. You can find my work available on Amazon on the link below. If you find this work valuable, consider subscribing, sharing, and following me on social media, as it'll help others in the same path to find this information. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.